Welcome to the Thank You Life podcast. In this episode, Kevin Canella shares a conversation with Erasmo Flores, who is an Army veteran and someone who has received financial assistance from Thank You Life in order to undergo ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Erasmo actually participated in a special group ketamine-assisted psychotherapy process last year at Rainfall Medicine in Portland, Oregon, where he and 8 other combat veterans, Army veterans, were able to enter into a process together. And this was funded by one of Thank You Life's incredible, generous donors. And Erasmo is somebody who has experienced a lot of pain and suffering in his life, not just in the military, but when he came home, dealing with PTSD and then a significant loss of a loved one. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. It is so heartfelt, and we hope that you see the impact that this type of work can have and how meaningful it was for Erasmo to be able to enter into this type of process in a group setting with people who truly understood what he was going through and the level of care that the group provided. And Rainfall Medicine, Dr. Steve Rzonki and Tyler Walsh and the rest of the team there, they really did such an incredible job curating this group and running it. So we are so thrilled to present this episode to you. And really, this is what it's all about. This is why Thank You Life exists. These type of stories of healing. If you would like to support and reach out, please visit our website, thankyoulife.org.
Thank You Life is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was started by myself and Dr. Dan Engel in 2022 as a financial assistance fund for psychedelic therapy. Psychedelic therapy is expensive, and 95% of the U.S. population cannot afford its costs. That's where we come in. We partner with over 100 ketamine clinics throughout the U.S. to help clients who cannot afford this treatment. In 2024 alone, we gave over $250,000 away to help 115 people receive this life-changing treatment. This work is not cheap, and it is life-changing. If you feel inspired to give or to become a monthly donor to help more individuals access this treatment, please visit thankyoulife.org/donate or email our Director of Philanthropy, Meredith Thomas, at meredith@thankyoulife.org. Every bit counts, and small monthly donations are especially important to keep this work moving forward. If you can give even $10 to $25 a month, you will join our community of contributors who are changing the lives of so many. Thank you all for your support.
This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Enthea, a mental health company dedicated to providing access to safe and affordable psychedelic-assisted therapy. Like us at Thank You Life, Enthea is committed to removing health equity obstacles that impede access to impactful mental health care. Enthea is a third-party administrator specializing in innovative mental health benefits for employers, including access to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. As the first and only provider of advanced mental health solutions for the workplace, they enable companies to expand their benefits to include breakthrough therapies that address root causes of mental health challenges. Visit enthea.com to learn more. And now, back to the show. Hi, Erasmo. Thank you so much for being on the Thank You Life podcast today and for being willing to share your story.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here, and I am happy to be just connecting with you and everyone else.
You know, and we chatted a little bit before we recorded, and I was asking you kind of how you got into all of this. I'm curious if that's just like a good place for us to start, you sharing about how you got into the Army and kind of what that experience was like for you.
Okay, yeah. So I joined the Army at the age of 18. I wanted to get a good job and take care of my family. So I joined on my 18th birthday to become a combat engineer. After basic training, I went to the 25th Infantry Division, Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, and I was stationed in Bravo Company's 65th Engineers. And I learned to be a soldier and trained. I wanted to be the best of, soldiers that I could be. I wanted to be all that I could be. A combat engineer specializes in mobility, counter-mobility, and survivability, and that means that, the mobility, we get our forces where they need to go. We prevent enemy forces from getting to us, and we make sure that our forces are protected through fortifications. So I trained there and lived there in Hawaii. In 2004, we deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom 2, and we were there for 13 months. And we, we're just helping to stabilize the country and ensure that the people of Iraq could have their first democratic election. So we wanted to make sure that their country was stable. And then I re-enlisted to stay in the 25th Infantry Division and the 65th Engineers when the unit transitioned to Stryker. And so we then deployed to Iraq again in 2007 to 2009 for 15 months and, continued with stabilizing the country of Iraq. Then we came back after deployment. At that time, I went to a different duty station. I went to Fort Irwin, and where I was a combat trainer. So I was training units to go into combat situations. And then from there, I transitioned out of the Army and went back to college to study architecture. But then during that time, my wife, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she died from cancer 11 years ago, and that left me with my kids, left me as a single parent with my kids down in Southern California. And it was, just me and taking care of them the best that I could. After my three daughters graduated from high school, each in their own time, I then decided it was time for me to, be close to some family members so that I could get a little bit of support for the PTSD that I was suffering from. And then, so I brought my son. We moved up here to Portland, Oregon, in order to be close to my sister, and so that she could, kind of be there for me and be someone I could lean on, and in times of in times of need. And so
If you don't mind, I'd love to just pause you right there. And there's a lot there between like the two deployments and the experience with your wife, while having children. And I'm curious just to start with the deployments. And I'm curious just to hear from you how those were. And hearing you speak about the PTSD, I imagine it was from both the deployments and also, the tragedy with your wife. But what were those deployments like for you, and what kind of impact did they have on you, both positive and negative, if there were pieces of each?
Oh yeah, the first time we deployed to Iraq, it was a lot less stable. We were transitioning from the initial push and surge into the war, and it was really, for lack of better, explaining it, it was the kind of like the Wild West, and we were trying to like bring law to a lawless land, if you will. And
Sure.
it was a lot of just unknowns, and just prior to going, we trained up significantly to be able to utilize our combat skills to do our jobs that we're supposed to do in the Army. So it was unpredictable. It was, just some interesting situations. One of the things that, well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So, it was unpredictable. It was, there was a lot of chaotic moments, and there was a lot of lulls in, action, and there was a lot of exploration, and there was a lot of just figuring things out as we go. One of the things that we did was we would go out. I don't know if I should say some of this stuff. That's why it's, having a little bit of trouble coming out, because I don't want to, I don't want to violate OPSEC or anything like that.
Yeah. Like I said, like whatever you feel comfortable with, and if it's not the details, that's totally fine. And just, I'll say one reflection I have just listening is, I can only imagine, just from the more like conceptual idea of PTSD that I know about, just imagining talking about the unpredictability, the chaos, and the lulls in action, but then these periods of chaos and action. I can just imagine this kind of, it's like, oh yeah, that's why hypervigilance is such a kind of such a piece of PTSD. I can only imagine that I would need to be kind of so tense or like so scared to relax, because then I would just need to get tense again at any sort of moment. And yeah, just how I feel like there's some kind of thing about like how unsettling the quiet can be, because you anticipate, but you're not sure when the chaos is going to come again. I mean, I can just imagine all of that just being such a mind fuck. And then basically not to be able to relax from that for, a year plus. Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, a lot of a lot of the stuff that happened, there was a lot of indirect fire. And so, you are just, without warning, you're doing whatever you're doing at night or, at any given time. And then all of a sudden, a rocket comes in and blows up. And so it's, like you always have to be on guard. And I mean, and that's just when you're on a FOB, a forward operating base, and that's not even being outside of the wire, out on mission, where you're, the protection is your patrol, your security, your immediate security. And there was a lot of indirect fire, and a lot of my fellow soldiers got hurt by that, and there's a lot of close calls. I mean, because like there was like so many instances of indirect fire, just, like you're winding down for the day, and you're just, about to like conduct personal hygiene, and you're just trying to like sit and talk with your fellow soldiers, and, and then all of a sudden, like there's an explosion and you have to go take cover. And that's only a small part of it, that you're always, have to be ready to get to a bunker, or, you got to make sure you got to check on your buddies. Then you have, that's just that. And then you have going out on mission each day to do whatever. And my specific platoon, we were a part of the force that was actually kind of moving around the country to just kind of react and to adjust to stabilizing other areas and conducting missions wherever are needed. And so you're just encountering different areas of the country, and just, yeah. And one thing I will say too is that like you expect some things and you don't expect some things, and you're just like, yeah, that'll never happen. And then it does. And you're just like, that's like wild. And, like for example, one night, some indirect fire hit the ammunition holding area, and it just caused a chain reaction of sympathetic detonations and explosions in a lot of munitions that were there. And it was just like worse than the 4th of July. And you have like these explosions that are huge, and like you have to evacuate areas, and when that happened, we had to get out of our living area, because we were within the range of the munitions to cause damage to us. And I was the last squad leader of my platoon that was in the area. I had to make sure the rest of the guys had our sensitive items and all of our equipment and that we could evacuate the area. And we were, about to leave. And just then, like, the sky lit up. This is nighttime. The sky lit up and I knew that it was a huge explosion. And I told everybody to get up against the barriers because, that was kind of the best we could do at the moment of where we were. And so we got as close to the barriers as we could to, shield ourselves from the blast or any shrapnel that might come at us. And then, in a couple of seconds later, like, I could tell that it was a huge blast. And a couple of seconds later, as we got up against the barriers, that, like, you just feel the shock come through you. And it's just like, I compare it to, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie King Kong, but, if you were to be held in King Kong's hand and he just, like, shook you like that, that's how that shock felt through your body. And so we had to, and some of the guys were like, okay, let's go. And I was like, no, wait. And then, because I knew that with an explosion that big, an explosion that would, shrapnel would be raining down on us. And so I told everybody, no, wait. And then I was like, listen. And then you can just hear the shrapnel coming in, hitting things close to us. And so we had to wait for that. And then I was like, okay, now go. And so we got to our vehicle, and all you could see was, like, you couldn't see anything. Like, there was just smoke everywhere. And we had to get to, we were supposed to go to a rally point, but I was like, no, that's too close. It's too close. We got to go much farther. And so I guided my driver and the guys in the vehicle. I guided us out of there. And we got to the command post, and we linked up with our unit, and we made sure that we were all accountable. It was just like an unpredictable, unexpected situation. And it was like, and as we were leaving, there was another huge blast. And so, like, we got out of there just in time. Cause if we would have, taken another blast, who knows what would have, like, been the effect on us. Cause that first one was just, it was crazy. And, so, I mean, that's just one, that was just
Right.
a of something that happened there, and
What's it like to share right now and kind of go back and tell us about this?
it brings up a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
I was, I've thought about this scenario, and I've talked about it a little bit, and I've sat with it, and I've even talked about it to people close to me at times. So it's like, yeah, I actually can't believe, like, the emotions that are coming up about it now, because and that's the thing about PTSD, is that, like, you sometimes it just, something can just pull you back into those feelings of extreme sense of urgency and vigilance and you can't anticipate it. It just, happens. And so it's like you're just trying to live your life, but, like, all of a sudden something makes you, like, transports you back there, and you're, like, there. And so
Some part of your system is, like, hasn't gotten the full picture that you're not in a war zone anymore.
yeah, absolutely. And, like, it's a life-changing experience in and of itself, in that, like, I hate to say that whole cliche thing, only the dead see the end of war, but for a lot of us, like, I can't speak for everybody, but, like, you almost never, like, come back from the way you were before. You're not the same person after it, and you're not going to be. And I don't want to say that that's all bad, but because you want to be able to understand the world and you want to be able to protect those around you and to be able to respond to any threats, but maybe we shouldn't have to feel threatened in the world around us. Maybe we should be able to live peacefully and without, each other causing harm to each other, that we are, ready to react to some kind of violent action at the drop of a hat, and so, but it's, like I said, that's just like one example of a day where just stuff happens then and you're, never the same.
I have a couple thoughts here. And, one is like they're different situations, obviously, but it almost sounds like when you go out on mission that perhaps those instances aren't as like deeply cutting because it's go time. And so you're like, okay, cool. Like we're not going to be in our safe place. And that it's almost like, because yeah, I imagine the idea of coming back home is like, okay, we're not at war anymore. But yeah, so it's like it's the moments where I'm supposed to be safe, but all of a sudden something happens and I need to be on again is like more jarring to the system. And then, yeah, the way you're describing it, and you mentioned the 4th of July, and as you were describing it, I was already thinking about what I've heard about, sensitivity to fireworks. And I'm like, yeah, that right there makes sense. Cause you're not on, you're supposed to just be chilling. And then all of a sudden something happens and it's like, and then, yeah, it makes sense that it would bring you back there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the 4th of July and New Year's, when people start setting off fireworks, it absolutely brings you back. It's like, there's no question about it. Like anytime anytime somebody's like setting off fireworks or whatever, and it's not just the fact of what I've experienced, it's like all of the explosions and gunfire that, you're automatically transported back. And so if you understand that does have an effect on us. People are just trying to celebrate or whatever, but you know what, honestly, like I've seen so many explosions. I've created so many explosions as a combat engineer that I don't care for fireworks anymore. Like that's like, so yeah, people need to be aware of that. And I mean, I know it's not going to stop. People get crazy with that stuff. And it's just like, you're back in that combat situation and you're trying to like relax and stuff, but you're like there.
You're listening to the Thank You Life podcast because you're interested in hearing inspiring stories about people's personal growth, transformation, and healing with psychedelics. And that's awesome because those stories are really powerful and they deserve to be heard. But if you are anything like me, you are also interested in what's happening out in the world to make these substances, these medicines, more accessible and available to everyone. So my name is Henry Winslow, and I created a free email newsletter called Tricycle Day that helps you do just that. Every week, I send 2 issues that take about 5 minutes to read, so not a huge time commitment at all, but they'll get you caught up on what's happening in psychedelic research, policy reform, and this emerging industry that's unfolding in real time. So if that sounds like something you would like to check out, just go to tricycleday.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. So with that said, I'm super happy to be supporting Thank You Life, and let's get back to the podcast.
This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Dr. Bronner's, a brand that believes in more than just making great soap. As a dedicated corporate sponsor of Thank You Life, Dr. Bronner's is helping us break down barriers to mental health care, advancing our mission to providing life-changing access to psychedelic therapy for those in need. Together, we're making healing possible for underserved communities across the country. So next time you see that iconic bottle on the shelf, know that Dr. Bronner's isn't just providing that refreshing shower. They're also invested in improving access to mental health care for everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bronner's, for being a true partner in healing. Visit drbronner's.com to learn more. Now back to the show. I mean, I think a piece of this to me too, just like highlights the need for, and I wish there was just like some sort of official program where when you come back to the US,
You just go into a program that helps you heal. Imagine if we had that. I can just, from what I know about the nervous system, I can just hear it in what you're sharing is like, yeah, like after that sort of experience, because the thing is, it's not acute, it's not like, it's like months on end that you're in that state or constantly getting like pushed back into that hypervigilance that, yeah, just like, gosh, such a need to help someone's body move through all that was accumulated during that.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, like I was like, that's the thing about PTSD is that you're so afraid that you think that everybody is an enemy. You think everything is a threat. And that's one of the reasons why you see veterans like off on their own, and they are just, like they happen into these situations of like really, really disconnection from people, because they're, that they're just, their system is really, really turned on, and as far as like to threat, and everything is a threat, and they've
Hyper arousal.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it takes for someone you trust. So like family is a big deal. Like, that's one of the reasons why I came up here to be around my sister. And like, for me, I had my kids, my 3 daughters and my son. I, through all of it, I had like really, like I had to continue to tell myself to say, like I have to take care of my kids. I have to do what they need me to do. And it was, I can't explain the, just the level of fear and my body's attempt to protect myself and my family from that fear about doing day-to-day activities. It was like, it was, I can't even explain how like difficult it was for me to try to make sense of the world and try to operate as what a lot of people would perceive as a normal person, just doing day-to-day activities and but so a lot of it was having to just like really take time with myself and feel, and to do things that I could try to do to heal on my own. Like, it takes a lot of responsibility from the individual to do things that are helpful to you, that are healing for you. And like stopping alcohol, that is a big deal, because that prevents healing. Like drinking alcohol, alcohol is like just it's not just a problem for veterans. It is a problem for everyone. Like, it is poison, and we should not drink it. Like, we shouldn't. Like, it's killing us. It is keeping us from healing. It is suppressing our pain, and it's just really like not allowing our thought processes to be at a level of baseline. And so it takes a lot of responsibility from the individual to even like to want to do things that are beneficial. And a lot of times, like things like alcohol is like a coping mechanism that just numbs any pain, as to get us to be in a way that's, I guess, social, so that we can
I think one thing I hear in this is that like it's kind of all on you when you come back. And I think that's just one thing that it seems like veterans really have trouble with. Like the combat piece, it's not all on you. There's a whole system and structure, and it's from what I hear, it sounds like you're very clear on what your role is in that system and structure. And I imagine that's extremely helpful to be in those very intense situations. And then all of a sudden it's just like you're dropped
dropped back on your own, and there's not a lot of system and structure to then kind of do the opposite of what you were just doing and go toward the healing and yeah, like of course we're just going to go toward the things that we know and the kind of easiest things available, which is, distraction, addiction.
Yeah. As a soldier, that's one of the best things about the Army is the camaraderie, is the feeling that you have somebody like right next to you that is gonna, really, really be there for you. And like the camaraderie is just like underestimated, and that like we have people there that are going through the same things. And even though we're all kind of struggling in our own ways it's a shared struggle, and it's difficult. I mean, like you need to feel like you can trust again.
It kind of reminds me of AA in the sense of like the community piece. And again, I just think like, gosh, what if you had felt that same kind of camaraderie for, a year or two after you got home around healing, around kind of down regulating from hypervigilance of war. And that, yeah, you had like a community that you were like assigned to of you. And I mean, even if it was just you and your other brothers and sisters that you were already deployed with, I don't know if all of that would be possible, but like, I just think, wow, I really wish that we were able to implement something like that to kind of like detransition people out of wartime, but still have that camaraderie of like, cool, now it's our time to heal, but we need to do this together so we can stay away from alcohol, so we can move toward whatever it's going to be for us, mindfulness, or, what, like family, and reintegrating and learning to trust again. And yeah. I want to ask another question too, is so, I mean, I feel like we really get a sense of how that was and the kind of PTSD from that. And then it sounds like you come back and then are faced with a really difficult situation with your wife. And yeah, I'm curious if you can share a little bit about how that was for you, how that was to have kids during that, like that you had to support during that time, while also having all that stacked on top of the PTSD that you're dealing with. I mean, it just sounds like a very difficult situation.
Well, yes, she was in the Army as well. And
Mm-hmm.
this is after my second tour in Iraq. We both transitioned out of the Army, and we were both going back to the college to just try to live the dream and further our skills to accomplish our goals for, a successful life together. The thing that's difficult is too that she also had PTSD. And so, us being together, we worked together. We tried our best to, kind of definitely decompress. We would, ride our bikes together and, relax together. And we would, partake in cannabis together as well. And that was, a helpful medicine to help you to relax and without the detrimental effects. So it was just a challenge of, balancing life as a civilian, where you don't have the structure, and you don't have the support. And, luckily for her, we were close to her family. So she had all of her family around her. And, and we were, we were working things together, and it was a beautiful time. And I think we were healing as much as we could without necessarily knowing the extent of the PTSD that we were both experiencing. and we were just, trying to love each other and take care of our kids and grow and focus on them and focus on our schooling. And so, yeah, and then, everything. And then she got diagnosed with cancer, and that was really difficult for both of us in different ways, in that she's struggling with this like terminal illness, and I'm having to take care of her, and she couldn't bring in a source of income anymore because she's, sick, and she's, and so that kind of left a lot on me to, have a job and be going to school and taking care of the kids and taking care of her all at the same time. And it was really it was really tumultuous. It was really like a lot of, just trying to weather the storm and trying to just continue to go on with the mission of trying to rebuild our lives, while at the same time, like, now she's dealing with this illness, and it took a lot of our, like, we had to do her, like, she had an operation, and she and then she had to do chemotherapy and radiation, and it was just really, really chaotic throughout that whole time. So, like, it's not like, it was just like more chaos after a lot of chaos. And so then you know, we we did our best, and she did all her treatments, and I was working and going to school, and then eventually I had to, like, get out of school and just, like, focus on taking care of her and the kids as best as possible. And we got a house up in the high desert, and my all of my kids, and we were all there together, and just trying to live a normal life while somebody, like, slowly deteriorating and dying from cancer. It is, it's like big, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Like, the love of your life, you're slowly watching them, deteriorate from this illness. You're trying your best to, balance, working and taking care of the kids and taking care of them, and it's
Just another super difficult experience, but also just that, like, difficult in such a different way, perhaps, than the combat stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to, like, put all that stuff aside and just focus on the best you can do with what you have.
Yeah, I just think, like, wow, there's been a lot asked of you in this life.
Yeah, I look back and I'm like, wow, man, I've gone through a lot since I can remember. And just, like, it's just been one thing after another, and then it's like, wow, it doesn't seem like some people have to deal with that.
Mm, mm.
Just, like,
Yeah,
what is their life purpose? What is their life like? What are they learning in this life experience? Did they already, in a past life experience something like that or whatever? And, it's,
yeah. It sounds like there's some, I don't know if it's confusion, but kind of like a what the fuck, like, what the fuck, God, what, like, why me and why this and why not other people? I mean, yeah, I can only imagine just wrestling with all of that.
and my wife died, and that was like, that was one of the most painful and horrible experiences I had to experience in this life. And it was really, I died too. And then I just had to take care of my kids and be strong for them and make sure that they were taken care of. And
You died too.
yeah, and so after that, it was like I was never the same, and I had to relearn how to live, relearn how to be a person.
With a lot of responsibility on your shoulders.
And then it's like after all that, I really wanted to give up. I wanted to die. I wish that I died instead of her.
Mm. Mm.
And I mean, I had been at times suicidal while I was in Iraq the second time, and then after I got back, like so many thoughts, and just after she died, it was even worse. It was only that like it thought of my kids, that I had to take care of my kids, that I was able to keep going. Like I had to understand that like that first and foremost, like I need to be there for my kids. They can't. If I were to die, then who knows what would happen to them. I know that it would be very, very tough for them, and they would be sad, and they would miss me, and they wouldn't have me to be there for them, to help them to grow and thrive and learn and do the things that they want to do to be successful in life. I, thought about my sister and my mom, and that like they would be really sad if I had killed myself. And so I, had to like tell myself that over and over and over again.
Mm.
And then and it was a lot of like, really sitting with the pain and understanding, or not understanding, but learning what is happening. And
Can you unpack that? Like, what does that mean exactly? Like learning what is happening?
well, it's feeling the pain and sitting with it and crying, really, really releasing all of everything that you've gone through, and you feel it, you pay attention to it, you look at it, you observe it, and you don't try to numb it with some kind of substance. You don't try to distract yourself. You take time to really allow yourself to cry and allow yourself to feel the feelings, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you try to make sense of it all. And you go in, you become curious about how can I understand, how can I work through these things, and develop techniques and meditation and prayer. And like I can't emphasize enough how important meditation and prayer are. Talk therapy, and if you can't, and I understand, like, I mean, me personally, I was afraid to talk to anyone. I was afraid to reach out to anyone. And so there are some techniques like tapping that is kind of a somatic way to, link the energy of the spirit, the body, and the mind, and your emotions to help us, like, tap through different points to
Is that EFT?
EFT, yeah.
What does that stand for? Emotional
Emotional
like
freedom technique.
freedom technique. Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and so like I, upon while my in the midst of suffering from her illness, I, healing. My mom had given me a bunch of books, and one was like "You Can Heal Your Life" by Louise Hay.
Mm.
And so it was like some like the affirmation. Like I read the book, and I was like, and immediately things started like coming to me in my mind and some understanding. But And so after, I'm trying to recover from all of these things and my wife dying, and I'm like sitting there, like I'm exploring these ways to kind of like feel the feelings and to understand like the link to our body and our emotions and our spirit and our energy. And so I find out about tapping, and I begin to explore there. Also, and so like I come upon to utilizing cannabis as well, and cannabis would a lot of times like bring up a lot of thoughts, and then I would be like it would bring up some feelings, and then I would go and I would tap on that. So that's like a plant medicine that is really, really, I love it. And it is it's not anywhere near a bad thing. Like this cannabis plant is like sacred. It's sacred and it's helpful, but there can come a point where I guess like anything in society, like it becomes, everything has energy. And so if you are, like, for example, like a lot of like nowadays, a lot of the cannabis is like really strong. It's like it doesn't need to be that strong, but to each their own. Utilize it as you will, but as a plant medicine, I mean, like I have even, experimenting with that and like having stuff come up and being able to tap, like, utilizing cannabis and being able to tap and feel this information, feel like the healing and allowing the release and allowing myself to cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. Like I can't even begin to tell you, like I would have to like sit here for like 10 minutes just saying that like I tapped and tapped and cried and tapped and cried, and I utilized cannabis, and not just the consumption of cannabis, but like the growing of it, because that in and of itself is like a therapeutic experience as well. And so like that, it's beautiful things of like plant medicine and psychedelics that can be used to help us to feel feelings, in a way that's not overdoing it or not abusing it, or, not using it to cope or, hide from things.
Numb and use it as a crutch. Yeah. There's so I was in Boulder for about 6 years, and there was a group out there that was doing ketamine therapy, but because of Colorado, they were also doing cannabis therapy. And for both, the kind of psychotherapy modality that they were using, something called trauma dynamics, that is a kind of derivative of sensory motor psychotherapy. So not quite the tapping, but very similar in the sense of like using the plant medicine to bring up what's there, and then having a modality that helps move all of that through the nervous system to be released. And I just feel stunned that it sounds like, kind of figured that out on your own, figured out a way to, you got the EFT, and then, figured out something that worked for you in terms of, using the cannabis to, go into difficult feelings and use it with the EFT to move the things through your body. Letting yourself feel and cry and emote and release. Gosh, that's all amazing. And it sounds like all of that, and this is all even before we get to the ketamine-assisted psychotherapy that you just did this year. Sounds like all of that just was super life-changing and healing for you.
Yes, I was, it was like,
Sorry, just a question here. How did that affect the SI, the suicidal ideation? Were you still dealing with it through that time, or did that stuff really help to kind of shift you out of that dark of a place?
it did. I mean, it took a lot of really sitting with these feelings and understanding, and then, new epiphanies happen through healing, and understanding that, I then come to understand in my mind that like, okay, well, another part aside from what I talked about as far as like why I shouldn't, or why anyone shouldn't kill themselves, because there's people that need them. There's people that need you. They need you in their life. Like they love you, and like you can't discount that interdependence of humanity, that we're here in this experience, this human experience, to learn what we need to learn in life. And if we cut that short through suicide, then we're just going to have to come back and do it all over again. And that includes figuring out how not to kill yourself, why not to kill yourself, the connection that we have to everyone. And so like continuing to try to heal, I believe, really focusing on it really brings about these understandings and this information about life and living and our spirituality and our connection to everyone and everything around us. It's, there's, healing, I guess. I've said this a couple of times. It's like, like maybe back then I was like way down here, and then, you allow things to heal and you come up here, and then you feel down again and other things come up and you're back down here, and then you heal things and you understand things and you go through things and you feel feelings and you're up here, and then other things come up and you feel down and low and sad and horrible, and you're right here, and then you heal some things and then you come up to here. And so it's this constant gradual of healing, in that like you're never going to be like down here anymore. When you come down and you feel like these negative feelings and these thoughts, like you're never back where you were. You may be down here, but the next step is up here. And so it's a constant and continual thing to, and you just build upon it with every, effort to continue to address things and try to live.
Yeah, I think of the idea of a baseline, and it sounds like what you're talking about is like each little piece, your baseline is a little higher up, and so the dip below the baseline is a little higher than before, and then a new baseline, and then that dip is not quite as down as it was, and which is also part of that, like just that circular nature of the healing and of the process. Can you then take us to, you had said before that ultimately your girls graduated from high school and you went up to be closer to your sister in Oregon. I don't think you mentioned it here, but before we were talking, you said that got you ultimately in with like a psychedelic recovery group. Yeah, can you share a bit about that, and then how all of that led to, stopping the alcohol and turning toward, or at least hearing about this this ketamine veteran group that we did?
After my wife died, I didn't, I had already been struggling with alcoholism, and I had come to some understandings that like I probably shouldn't do this anymore. But with everything that is, with the way that it seems that society is set up, that like it's like everywhere you go and everything you do, like everybody needs to have a drink, and it's like it's all like glorified and just like expected of you to drink. You're expected to drink. But so I come to grips with that, like, no, like I am not gonna drink, and it's just really not healthy for me. It makes you sick and causes all kinds of problems. And then you try to be social with people, and they're all drinking, or they're and so you think you can manage it, and you realize that you just gotta like stay away from it. So there's a little like back and forth sometimes. And so a few years before I came up to Portland, I had to like really again make sure that like make a conscious decision like, okay, this is done. I remember having a 6-pack of beer, and I was about to drink it, and I was feeling low, and I wanted to drink it, and I said no, and I poured it out in the sink, and that was the last time I drank. And that was about like, I've been here, that's probably about 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. A couple years before I came up to Portland. And so it's really important to be around people that don't drink. And I mean, luckily I had got to a point where it's like I made a conscious decision not to drink, and so I could actually like be in social settings because everybody drinks, and I could be in social settings and I could be like, no, I'm not drinking. No, I'm not drinking. And everybody can be drinking around me and doing whatever, and I'm just like not drinking. And I mean, of course, that took for me to be like, well, why do I even need to go? Like, everybody's gonna be drinking and drunk, and they're not even gonna be their self, their honest, authentic self, because that is masked by alcohol. And so why do I need to be out there? I don't need to be out there. I need to be home taking care of my kids, or my son now that I'm up here in Portland. And so it's really difficult when you try to like abstain from alcohol, especially, and you're trying to heal, because like it is like everywhere around you. Like you might as well just like say like, okay, I'm going to be a hermit now, because there's just like peer pressure, but I am myself got to a point where I didn't, I wasn't going to be influenced by what was going on. And so I was actually able to, and I wanted to, with my sister, go to events and social gatherings where alcohol is not the main focus, and then I'm meeting new people, and my sister's a really amazing person, and she's she has, helped me spiritually, and to be, there as much as she could for me, as far as like us communicating over the phone, when I was down there in California and she's up here. And so she introduced me to some good people. And, my current girlfriend, she also had been, trying to abstain from alcohol. And so that was a really, it's good to be around people that are also, like trying to reinforce healthy habits and reinforce like healing and stuff like that. And so she informed me that she knew about this, Portland Psychedelic Society, a recovery meeting for people who are addicted to alcohol and or other substances, and that they're wanting to break away from the traditional 12-step programs that are like religion based, because and they mandate that you abstain from any substance that is, modifies your being. And so the Portland Psychedelic Society is this meeting was like a space where we get to talk about things that are safe, that can bring about healing. A substance such as like cannabis or psilocybin mushrooms, or now I know ketamine, that like people are utilizing, especially mushrooms, to like just have these experiences, these spiritual experiences, and where they're using it in a sacred way, and using it to specifically look into themselves as far as like spiritual questioning and exploration, to help them to understand life and to heal, to get them away from the addictive behaviors that were detrimental to their way of being. or that that was causing them problems in their life. And so this is it, and so I was like, I've always loved cannabis, and it's always been like a healing medicine. And I'm learning with these other people that they've had, their experiences with other plant medicines like psilocybin. And I had started to see that, like, okay, like it looks like they're doing these sessions with these other psychedelics such as ketamine to bring up and help us to understand what's going on with ourselves and bring up things so that we can look at them and observe them and heal them in healthy ways, and to like further our growth as a human being. And so I'm a veteran, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. And so one of the facilitators of one of these meetings, she said, hey, they're going to be doing a group for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy with Army veterans. And so you're going to, utilize this medicine to explore the ways that you can help to heal your PTSD. And so, part of our healing is like saying, yes to experiences. And, I spent a lot of time running through the woods here. That's one of the beautiful things about, being up here in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, is like all of the natural, beautiful foresty areas and with rivers and stuff. And so that in and of itself is healing, being in nature. And but back to what I was saying is that, like, so I kind of veered off on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, you were talking about the getting into the ketamine group, the veteran ketamine group that we did with Rainfall Medicine. And quick shout out to Dr. Steve Rozonki and Tyler Walsh for facilitating that group. And yeah, you were sharing basically about how you got into that group.
Yeah, and so I'm like, yeah, no, I remember. And so it's like, saying yes to new experiences, even though you're like afraid, as far as like the PTSD goes, like you're afraid, like you immediately don't want to be out of your comfort zone. You don't want to, go and do this or that. But, you I think that as you work with yourself, as you work to try to heal, to try to re-enter life and to be a best version of yourself, the best version of yourself. So she says, about this ketamine group, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I say yes, kind of like Yes Man in that movie with Jim Carrey. And it was scary to go, like I'm, PTSD really go away. But you learn to, I guess, manage it and adjust to it and stuff.
And, just a comment here is like what you were talking about with the, like, not wanting to go explore, not wanting to go into unfamiliar spaces. Again, just to relate it to what you're talking about with the, your time in combat, is to me, like, everything is just like gets written into our psyche or our nervous system, so to speak. And so that time in war, what's getting written into the place of the unknown is all of these experiences of the chaos and everything that you were talking about. And so if that all of a sudden is written, even when we come back here, whenever the unknown comes up, our brain or our system goes into like, well, it could be, these are all the things that could happen in the unknown. And it's the wartime stuff again. So it's like, yeah, of course we're going to shy away from that and have fear come up around, walking back toward that. And yeah, good on you for, walking toward that fear and the unknown, and, trying to rewrite that for yourself.
Yeah. And it's hard to be vulnerable, especially in a world that doesn't really value it, vulnerability. And that being vulnerable, in the past, you might have been vulnerable and like you've been met with some really, negative behavior towards your vulnerability, and that in and of itself becomes like an attack. And so like I signed up and I'm like, okay, let's explore. Let's see what's going to happen. Like I am open. I have to continue to be open in order to figure things out, and see what's there and see what is, next in this experience here. And my girlfriend, she, encouraged me to continue, or to go through with this. And I really, I'm really, really glad I did.
Yeah. I'm curious about your experience there and how it was with the facilitators, and also how the kind of group aspect played a role. And yeah, wherever you feel called to start, I'd love to hear about all those pieces.
Well, I really, they really, really created a warm and safe space for all of us to like feel comfortable. And that was like, I guess the beginning, or, what it was necessary to start with. Was like, they really, really utilized their compassion and awareness to bring us in and let us know that we were safe. And that was really, really powerful, to allow for healing. And the fact that there were other veterans there who were also trying to explore and are open to being vulnerable. It's like, it was very familiar as far as like, experiences in the Army. And it was great to have people who've had similar experiences that understand what you've gone through, and what they've gone through. And so that was really cool. And that was a big part of the healing, that like we're able to just, veterans, we have a certain way about us. And when you can, really, that camaraderie comes back, that like when us as veterans in a group, like the camaraderie like developed, and we, went in there with open minds to, and open hearts to, connect with each other. And it was really important as far as the experience, in that we were going through it together. And it wasn't just like one of us all alone, doing these journeys. Like it was a shared experience, and it was energies, within this space. It co-created. It was a co-creation of an experience and a circle of healing. And now going through this experience with these fellow veterans, it's like, I have a new group of friends that, we will, always be there for each other. Like we went through this experience and opened up and got to know each other. We've made it a point to schedule get-togethers after the experience has happened. Like we're now, we still communicate. It's nice to have a group of people that we've like shared, a beautiful experience and a healing experience together. And that wouldn't have been the same if it was just like me going by myself. Like, cause with a group, like we are basically all a part. Everybody is a part of you. Come to this understanding, and you are one part of everybody else. And you really, really like come together and are able to see things from different perspectives. And it's like you feel this familiarity, and you feel this like resonance with each other. It's like, yeah, I was feeling that too. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, I've experienced that in life too. All of these things that are really, really important to our interdependence and our connection as a human in this life. We really, really, as a group, you get to see just how much we need each other and how much we really are the same life energy, the same light. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I really hear the power of the connection that's developed in the group. And then it sounds like just it helps you to feel really seen and the stuff that you went through, and getting to see just how similar some of the feelings and experiences are to others. Yeah. Oh, it's so, so important. I'm curious if there's anything particular that feels really poignant to share about what the actual experiences with ketamine were like. I believe these were intermuscular experiences.
Yes.
So yeah, how were those for you? And I mean, it sounds like they were pretty potent and mystical.
Yeah. Well, it was exciting. Going into this veterans group ketamine-assisted therapy session, I had no expectations. The administrators had set up a space of reception of myself and others with great care and respect. The space that was held for us to open up and relax while we were to experience the effects of the ketamine in our system doing what it does was a peaceful sanctuary of protection. I laid ready to meditate as I waited to receive the dose of ketamine. I made sure that I was comfortable. Soft, tranquil music played in the background as I focused on my breathing. Then I felt the dose of ketamine injected into my shoulder. I adjusted myself and tried to get as comfortable as possible to be able to really relax and take in the experience. I was ready. I lay there wondering what it was going to feel like. Waiting. Then it finally hit. The world began to shift around me. Visually, I could see like animated polyurethane foam, as if I was feeling the foam of my eye coverings, as if I was entering the polyurethane itself, but I wasn't. I was sort of a really dark reddish color, almost black, but reddish. And it was all moving around, sort of like looking through a kaleidoscope. The polyurethane foam was also like tiny molecules or atoms, but it was also unlike anything that I have ever seen or witnessed. And everything morphed into a large room, but at the same time it wasn't a room because the walls, ceiling, and floor had no beginning or end. The colors are now a very dark green and black, like if you pour equal parts of dark green and black paint into a shallow container and mix them around so that there are streaks and stripes that commingle together but not quite mix. When this room type of space came about, I felt like I had shrunk to the size of a microscopic organism, and I was stuck. It was as if there was nothing I could do ever again. The walls of the room adjusted and shifted and undulated about slowly and indefinitely. My body had dissolved. I was no longer a physical being. Essentially, I died. My body dissolved into the lowest, most disgusting, putrid liquid that essentially seeped into the ground. Later on, one of the other group members had described this liquid as they experienced something similar as well as primordial ooze. And that description seemed quite accurate. Primordial soup, a liquid substance that existed on Earth before there were any plants, animals, or humans, and from which plants and animals and humans developed. That is exactly what happened. My body had dissolved into the lowest, most disgusting, putrid liquid imaginable and seeped into the ground. All that was left of me was existence. All that was left of me was consciousness. I was a speck of dust traveling through space. I was a microscopic entity of which everything is. I was dead, and in saying that, I mean my body was dead. I came back to what we are, existence. I merely existed. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a definite appearance. I forgot everything because nothing had been or could be defined as anything specific. No words, no forms, no meaning to anything. Even though I say that this liquid of which I dissolved into was low and disgusting and putrid, at the same time it was familiar and comfortable. And it was okay. It wasn't me anyway. I had just moved through it. As I float in this room or space, it felt interstellar. Moving through space, I thought of moving faster than the speed of light. Ludicrous speed came to mind. I was most definitely tiny, microscopic, but microscopic doesn't accurately describe the size either, because I was so much smaller than, so amazingly, incredibly minuscule, tiny, and insignificant. The walls and forms continued to shift and morph around me. Again, nothing was quite discernible, and there was nothing that I could identify as this or that, or be able to recognize anything that I had ever encountered in my waking life, previous life, because once again, my body no longer existed. I think I saw one right angle in the vastness of the void which I flew around. The colors shifted. It was still very dark, but I could see more like pink and black. The boundaries shifted. I was dead. All I could do was wait. All I could do was witness. All I could do was exist. I am existence itself. Then I was a speck of dirt or dust or something on the floor in the corner of the room, like a nail stuck in the wall on the bottom of the wall in the corner of the room. I was just there. I just existed. I could see through the eyes of the smallest, most insignificant forms, in the most insignificant places. I lost all sense of what language was. I lost all sense of everything, because it could have been and meant anything. I was dead and infinity. I continued to float, exist. I also remember for a brief period of time that I was in my garden. But I existed at the base of a wooden planter, as small as small could be, looking up sort of like at a 45-degree angle towards the sky. I could see my other planter and the plants that were in it. I could also see the night sky slightly illuminated by the moon. I'd wondered how I got there. I'd also wondered what I was, if in a physical form of sort. Like, was I a tiny insect, or was I just a piece of dirt? I was truly experiencing the everything of existence as before physical form, or just another physical form. But at the same time, just existence. These things, then things, the spaces, the visual imagery morph again as feeling like this existence and back and forth, like this primordial ooze. I started to become more slightly aware of my body and its parts, not completely, but I thought to myself, or rather I felt myself, but again, I didn't care, because I wasn't even human or any type of physical thing. And I realized my body began to seem to be materializing again. I could see different visualizations at this time as more like space and flames and tiny molecules of energy, mostly red and orange and purple, all darker and swirling about. I noticed my hands and arms and legs moving as if I was moving through outer space. But not outer space at the same time. It was beyond that. It was more like as if I could see everything in its most basic forms. It was like everything was like liquid, as in there is matter infinitely everywhere and constantly moving through it. But we don't notice all of the particles because we're usually obsessed with physical form and everything that we can see and identify. But I could see every particle, and we are not separate from it. We are it. It just seems like there's a definite beginning and end to ourselves than anything else. So now I can feel all of this stuff moving around me. I can feel my arms and hands and legs as I'm moving through space. Even though I'm laying down, I'm able to move my arms and hands and my legs to manipulate the area around me. I'm rubbing my feet on the sleeping mat because it feels so nice and soothing. I feel around my space, my face and my head. I'm astonished that parts of me are actually there. For a while, I was dead. I didn't have a body, nor did I even care if I had a body, because I still existed nonetheless. I remember to breathe, and I push and pull and grasp and maneuver the energy around me. My eyes are closed, and I have cover over my eyes, yet I can see my arms and hands, or rather the energy and molecules that they are composed of. My arms are like fuzzy, tiny, indefinitely shaped conglomerations of dark reddish fluid orbs all dancing around in hand-like shapes. It seems that there are only 4 fingers to my particular hands, but they're more like tentacles of these reddish fluid orbs all moving as my hands and arms. I'm astonished. I continue to move my hands and legs, and I'm almost dancing and moving the energy of the universe all around. It's almost like I'm able to move it and change it and manipulate it in the way that feels good for me. And I realize that this is the case, in fact, that I can make and move the universe. I have the power to move it all to my desire. Then I wanted to test it out. I guess I felt for my face mask in my head to see if I was still there. I wanted to deliberately make sure that my eyes were covered and closed and attempt to see my arms and hands again. And I did. I deliberately called into view the energy matter of my hands and arms to be able to see them through my closed eyes that were covered. I was the master of the universe. In one aspect, I am the lowest form of life and amazingly, incredibly insignificant. At the same time, I am totally, completely, incredibly, and amazingly powerful in this existence. It was like that genie in that movie that said he had phenomenal cosmic power, itty bitty living space, so I continued to breathe and be somewhere between death and physical form. And I began to feel more of my body and was really enjoying seeing these beautiful sights. And then slowly I came back, and it was a wonderful, beautiful experience. And it showed me I'm not to be afraid of death. I'm no longer afraid of death. We exist, and that cannot be reversed or stopped. We are the masters of the universe, and we possess the powers to manipulate our surroundings and do anything that we want. We are everything and nothing. So amazing. Existence.
How is it to share that?
It's wonderful. It feels helpful. I didn't know what to expect, and I would encourage anyone that actually I would encourage anybody and everybody to go through this experience, to at least just see what you can glean and really realize from this whole experience. So
you seem so alive and vibrant and bright.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was, it brought me back, and I knew that, writing this stuff down would be important and helpful. And we didn't, nobody was told that we should do this or whatever. I took it upon myself because I wanted to give this back to the facilitators. I gave them all of my writings so that they could, I guess maybe help others, or maybe, just be able to give somebody some kind of, expectation, or also to share what I have found and what I now know to be so powerful, that anyone, that even if you don't go through a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, that if you can listen to some of this information that I've shared, that it can be empowering, because it was definitely empowering for me. It's we are existence. We cannot be, our body can go away, but the life energy that we are, it exists regardless. And that in this existence, we have the power, through our intention, through our love and our lust for life, to create a beautiful life for ourselves, to create anything we want. And we do. As you can see, everybody throughout the world, they're creating all of these wonderful things. And it's love. And we need more of that. And hopefully, I hope that it can bring about some spark of inspiration, or just some understanding, say, hey, yeah, we do have the power. And so I feel very I appreciate that I am allowed to share this information, and to just connect through my experience. So it's really, really, it was exciting. It's exciting to, and it is, I have to say that it was really, really difficult to describe a lot of the things that you see. This is only a small, the stuff that I've described is only a small little bit of the vastness or the scope of the visual, happenings and the feelings in which you just experience. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. For freedom is a word that comes to mind, especially from all the pain and PTSD symptoms that we were describing. And then to have this sort of experience, it just sounds like during that time you felt so free. And a couple other comments is there's this phrase or sort of like a formula for God, so to speak, from Hinduism, Satchidananda. And yeah, you might be familiar. And one translation that I've heard is existence, consciousness, bliss.
Yeah,
And I just
absolutely.
kept hearing you say existence, consciousness. You used the word infinity a couple times, kept saying just existence. And yeah, that really like reminds me of some of my more mystical experiences of this, like I am existence itself. And another way I would say that is like, yeah, the witness behind form, the awareness behind form. And then, another thing I'll say is there's this one body of material that I really like that talks about this certain level that we get to that sounds like millions of years of like spiritual evolution, it more advanced than we are. But this particular point we get to where we begin to unify paradoxes, essentially, is kind of how it's all about, like paradoxes suddenly not becoming unparadoxical. And I was thinking about that, and it just really struck me how you just kept speaking about being the vastness of existence and a speck at the same time, the vastness of existence and a speck of dust or just a molecule. And it was like, wow, yeah, you were really in that space where paradoxes no longer exist. And that it just seemed there was no question that you could be both at the same time. And somehow you were both at the same time. And yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah. So like, I start to think about people that might be listening to this and how interesting or curious that experience could be. And then I imagine if someone doesn't have much context for an experience like this, a question might be like, okay, so what now? Like, and which is basically the question of integration. And so I'm curious for you how an experience like that has kind of followed into your daily life, and does that make just like a general spiritual connection more accessible for you, or how has it impacted you?
But yeah, well, first I'll say that like it was like, the sessions kind of built upon each other, and that like a lot of healing took place and a lot of understanding. And one of the things, and I understand that like when we're about to experience something, whatever it is in life, it's like our spirit, our life energy is already preparing us to go into these experiences. And it definitely deepened. I mean, I was already really spiritual, and I feel very connected to a spiritual guidance. I mean, relatively speaking, I guess. So now it's like some of these things you understand, and it's like you can intellectualize some of these things. And then like going into the medicine, it's like a practical application almost. Like you're actually like really like being able to like, before it's like, okay, like I understand this. Yeah, this is correct. Like this feels true about life, information about living and experiencing life. And then it's like you go into this experience and it's like, yeah, it's confirmation and corroboration that what you are intellectually understood is now you feel. So it's like a deeper type of a deeper like more of a comfortable feeling. And it's interesting because you go like after you have one of these experiences, it's like this really like you're just on this high, and it's not like a substance high or anything like that. You're on a spiritual understanding type of high. Like you've had an opinion, and it's like, yeah. And then, but also like all of that has cleared the way for other stuff to like come to the surface until it's like, there's these things now. And then you go into the next session. It's like you kind of like bring that stuff up and you clean it away. And so it's like, you have worries after like one of the sessions, like you have these worries like, oh, this has gone wrong and oh, this is bad. And oh, you start to worry like, oh, am I going to be able to take on this endeavor to create this thing, this business, this situation that I want? And then you get back and you have another journey and it's like, wow, it's okay. I don't need to worry about any of that anymore. And it's like you realize that like it really helps you to realize that a lot of this stuff that we're worried about, it's not as important as we make it out to be.
Mm.
So after all of this, we remain present and we remain connected and we remain aware through our continual efforts. It's like the saying that my sister, I know a lot of other people have heard this, but my sister brought this to me. It's like, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And so it's just like
That was the exact phrase I was thinking of as you were sharing this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's, if something else comes up, you remember these experiences, you remember the lessons, and you remain like in the center, and you just know like, well, this is life, and the next part of it is coming, and let's be enthusiastic about it. Let's see what's going to happen. It's an experience. Like, we can say yes and just like be open and don't have expectations and be willing to like observe. Just observe what is happening. What can I learn from this?
It's really beautiful to see, again, your brightness, especially with all the pain that you had also shared before. And yeah, I really see the transformation in you. You're talking about connection, and it sounds like maybe at least one thing that this gave you is that you said you already had a bit of a spiritual connection before, but it sounds like it like really gave you a really deep experience of a spiritual connection. And now, that like day-to-day experience that you can tap into that connection that the medicine experience forged, you can now just tap into that connection a little bit easier than say before it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that it was like the fact that it was like 5 sessions, that was beautiful. We had enough time in between, like, we would go on a journey, and then we would go be able to reflect on the information that had come to us and what was coming to us, and go and just explore these feelings. And we would come and talk about it again and online together, and just kind of continue to explore it. That would help to bring more up, and then we'd go into the next experience, and it would just bring you to a good space, really learn. And like, I think one of the best parts, that one of the most necessary parts, was also like the aspects of not just like, taking the medicine, but also the space, the contributions of the facilitators to give us, more of a way to together as a group utilize the collective consciousness to gain more information as far as like what we might need to look at, and like the different healing aspects of it, like just the music and the healing presence of certain facilitators, and the ways that the sort of little rituals within the entire ritual that like really put you in a connected space that like you're able to like gain some divine knowledge. Like we really tapped into the connection to source, to the light that we all are. And it was like the things that we shared, like the poems, like, breathing together and connecting together and just investigating into like thoughts of healing and stuff like that. And as well, in the final session, a healer was brought in, and she, while we were in this journey, she did some clearing type of things for us. And that during the journey was like powerful, in say the least, so powerful and so cleansing and so healing. It kind of actuated the entire experience. Like, okay, so we've uncovered all of this stuff. We'd experienced all of this stuff. And then now it's like with the space too, the space, the building that we were in, there's like this amazing healing properties of this space. It's almost like it was alive in and of itself. And it was, and that it, like during the last journey, there was a part where I was feeling this cleansing happening, feeling this healing happening. It was like a swirling, a bubbling, like it was like light, and I was feeling like I was like kind of in a gentle, and this is, I can't explain it really, but I was like in a gentle like spiral of like bubbly cleansing, like in a washing machine, but like really like really great feeling, happy feeling type of cleansing. And then this swirling, right? This swirling, it came together, and I started to visualize. Then I intend to draw this sometime, because I'm never gonna forget this imagery. It was like it was funny and cute and powerful all at the same time. And it like really makes me like happy to think about it. But that like it was the space, the building that we were in, like it really has spiritual properties. And so I could see, like, as I saw this cleaning, it became bigger, and I was pushed back. I was pushed back into like corner of this huge auditorium room, and all of this stuff that was like cleaning was like all spinning around in like a vortex, and it was like all these particles, and it was all of the junk that we needed to get rid of. It was spinning around and spinning around and spinning around. And then like this cute, just wholesome, like loving, just like relaxed type of hungry glob of an entity. It just kind of like, it rose up, and all of this stuff is like swirling around. It rose up, and it's just like, it grabbed it all, and it's just like opened its mouth, and it pulled it encompassed all of it, and it pulled all of this stuff into its belly, like it ate it all. And it was just like really happy. And then like it was just like, I'm gonna take all of this stuff for you guys that's been cleansed. And so it's like the space, the people, the facilitators, the veterans, all of it together, it was just a beautiful experience. And if they can, recreate that same thing again and again and again, it can help countless numbers of people. I would recommend anybody doing this. to just experience the love of the universe and the love of connection and the love of healing and all of that is a really amazing experience.
I really appreciate you sharing and attempting to make the ineffable effable. I think just listening to you describing that, this is why the word ineffable is often used, because it's hard to capture with words the kind of totality of it. I feel incredibly grateful for getting to have you on here and for having you share all of this. One last question that I want to ask is about the financial piece, and what actually before we get to that, this is what I was going to say. With the ineffable piece, and I was just at like a psychedelic panel that I was watching earlier this week, and listening to somebody who's more on the kind of, he's like a clinical psychologist. He's more on like the scientific side of these things. And it's unclear whether he's had his own psychedelic experiences yet, which, after just listening to what you described, is like kind of hard to imagine that somebody can be studying these things and not having a personal experience of something like you're talking about. And part of my intention with this podcast is to help people understand what people are actually going through, because, what you just described is not going to be captured on a depression scale. It's not necessarily going to be captured on a scale about PTSD and how often your hypervigilance symptoms are coming up, or how often night terrors are coming up in your life. We might see that those night terrors decreased because of an experience like this, but I think that just captures a very small piece of how meaningful an experience like this can be for somebody, how much it can help somebody feel connected, and how much it can help somebody feel a sense of understanding, even if they still live with similar symptoms, but they have a deeper understanding of who they are, what reality is, what the universe is that they're living inside of. And, I just think all of that is so important. And I don't quite know how we bridge this gap between science and research trying to study these things and the phenomenological experiences that are so deeply personally meaningful to the people that have them. And my hope is that getting to share stories like yours at least just helps inform the public and kind of displays for us all how difficult it can be to bring that kind of science and spirituality together, so to speak. So again, thank you for being so willing to share the more mystical and strange and otherworldly pieces of your experience. And then the question about the finances. Can you speak to, I guess, how important that was for you personally to receive and to get to be a part of a group like this that Thank You Life was able to sponsor?
It was instrumental, and it was imperative that we were able to go through this experience, and through Thank You Life giving the grants, or financing this operation, because things take resources, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without it being provided to us to help us this way. So it was it's either I do it or I don't. That's how important it is that Thank You Life was able to finance this project, and I'm really grateful. I really appreciate that, because if it would have came down to having to pay for it myself out of pocket, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would be like, okay, well, I guess I'll save up for it, and then it never happens, because I'm trying to take care of my son, and he's got things that he needs to do, and I'm trying to help him graduate high school, and any parent knows that is not a inexpensive endeavor, and so when you're focused on just going through day-to-day experience.
Life,
all the life expenses.
that,
Totally.
like, it's, every now and then you can, save up for, this and that. And I have, like done, like maybe like a couple $100 for a certain seminar, or buying books, or, meditations, or this or that here. But, with with everything that was, encompassed in this experience, I know that, people need to be, they utilize their services and their energy to make things happen. And it's, not everything's an energy exchange. Things take resources. We really appreciate that Thank You Life was able to provide this to us, because it, like I said, either it happens or it doesn't. And with Thank You Life, it happened. So I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out to one of our really great donors, this man, Angel Mehta. And yeah, it was his $30,000 gift that allowed this group to happen. And yeah, we were able to help, I believe 9 veterans. So you and 8 others through this group. Yeah, that can give people a sense of how expensive this work is. And, part of the reason that it was actually so low was because it was a group experience, and that really helped with the pricing. And, I also just want to highlight that, like, what we love about the group work is not only does it make it more accessible and affordable, but clearly there's such a important, healing component to the group work, as you had, as you shared today with us. Yeah, so thank you so very much again, Erasmo. It was such a pleasure to get to really dive into, the pain and the beauty here. And yeah, our hope is to get to do another one of these with Dr. Steve and Tyler and Rainfall. I think this first one was such a great success, and my hope is that you sharing your story here will help us find the donors who can make this happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I'm happy to share this information, and I hope that it helps. I want to help, do whatever I can.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Thank You Life podcast. If you would like to get involved with our mission and help more people in need access ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, please consider becoming a monthly supporter. Donations are the sole means through which we provide financial assistance to our beneficiaries, and we currently have close to 1,000 people in need on our waitlist. This work could not happen without our generous supporters, so if you've been touched by hearing these stories of healing and want to make an impact, please consider visiting our website, thankyoulife.org, and becoming a monthly supporter.